Hello, my name is Gabby Turner. Welcome to this pick a card reading. We're going to be getting some messages from God. So we'll see what God has to say to you right now, just channeling those insights that you most need in the moment. And we have three options here. So you do have three stacks, and on the top of number 1 is the 5 of Pentacles. Number 2 is the 10 of Swords. And number 3 is the Knight of Pentacles. So those are your three options. The timestamps will be below, and I'll see you at your reading. All right, group 1, you chose the 5 of Pentacles. So I'm just going to take the first 3 cards here, and we'll see what God is having to say to you. So the first thing that I'm getting is it almost feels like the sky is falling. You know, it's like there is no security. It feels that no matter what you do, everything just keeps falling apart. I'm going to clarify here the 7 of Swords reversed. I think that for some of you, the fact that the sky is falling and everything, you know, it almost makes you feel like, well, even when I do the right thing, you know, I'm doing all the right things, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and it's still not working. Why is it that I'm going by the rules, I'm doing what I'm asked to do, I'm following the standards and procedures, or the, you know, like whatever it is, the protocol of life. I've done the thing. I've done all of the things. I'm following the path that I'm supposed to follow, or that I feel that I'm supposed to follow. And it almost, I feel, with this 7 of Swords reversed, it almost tempts you to go do things the bad way. Because it feels like, well, when people lie, cheat, and steal, they seem to get ahead much more quickly than me. So I feel like that's kind of the issue that God wants to bring up. Like, your emotions are definitely being triggered. It's causing a lot of emotions in you that all this is happening. But I feel like God is most concerned with the fact that part of you just kind of wants to give up being the good girl or the good guy who's trying to do things the right way, and you just want to give in and do the wrong thing and see if you can make progress that way. And I feel like what God wants to remind you of is that, you know, life is like the game Wheel of Fortune. We spin the wheel, and to be honest, most of the time you land on something good, right? You've seen that game show, Wheel of Fortune. Most of the time you land on something that's positive. I mean, $200 may not be the best piece of the wheel to land on versus like 20 grand. You know what I mean? But it's better than bankrupt. So the first thing that God wants to remind you of is sometimes there are small blessings that are still going on in our lives. And just because they're not the huge blessings, we discount them, or we've taken them for granted. We've just gotten used to small blessings. And God would like you to keep that in perspective. There are still small blessings throughout the day. Little things that make your life a little bit more comfortable. Little things that there are people in the world who don't have that, you know. It could be your freedom to live outside of, you know, a jail cell or a prison. It could be, you know, getting to have the food that you want. It could be having access to the medicine you need. You know, I could go on. It could be you have a cat or a dog. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many things that we just take for granted in our lives that are blessings, and you need to count those blessings. The other thing is, God is acknowledging that you are genuinely going through a difficult time, because it's like you're playing the topsy-turvy version of Wheel of Fortune, where you keep spinning the wheel, and it almost always lands on something bad. It's like the wheel has been filled with bankrupts and lose-a-turns, and you keep landing on the bad things. But God wants you to know that there's still an opportunity here. Let me understand what this is meaning here. There's some sort of opportunity. For one thing, God still wants to give you this perspective. This is an important perspective to have that is about to be said. And it's one that only someone with your level of maturity can handle. Because there are many people in the world who would never be given the circumstances that you are in, because they would never be able to handle them, and they wouldn't learn anything from the experience. You have the opportunity to learn from this experience, and God is trying to remind you the opportunity here. Yeah, you've got that wheel of fortune that has been loaded with negatives, and you keep landing on negatives. There's still some positives there on the board. But God is saying, in the big scheme of things, in the big scheme of how awful and how ridiculously cruel life could potentially be, what you are going through is still a game. And you're still sometimes making mountains out of molehills. The fact that your wheel of fortune is packed with, unlucky or unsavory experiences, it's still, in the big scheme of things, not that bad. There are still horrors and terrors that people experience that you are not experiencing. And God is saying that when we learn not to cling to false promises that excess will bring us all of the opportunities that we've been seeking. Only if I have, a luxury home, only if I have a great car, or a car at all. Only if I have X amount of money. Only if I have like a bunch of free time, only if I can be wealthy without having to work. I can go on. Like, we expect these wonderful things. And God is saying that we can get fixated on the idea that opportunities in life only come if this, then I'll have the opportunity to be happy. Basically, that's what we're seeking, right? We want to be happy. If only I had this experience or this resource, if only this was my reality, if only I looked like this. It could be so many different things that we think, well, if I were only really beautiful like such and such person, then of course life would be a breeze. Life would be so easy. God is saying that is a falsehood. It's sort of a temptation that we can be pulled in, a temptation that leads us down a path of negativity, where we lose sight of any sense of gratitude and any sense of realism, because the reality is that life is difficult. And when we can accept our reality for what it is and stop putting these clauses on it, stop putting these like, well, I have to have such and such and such in order to even have the opportunity to be happy. When you take life as it is, that's when you realize you yourself are the one who actually creates the opportunity to be happy. You are a creator of happiness in your own life simply by recognizing all of the opportunities for happiness that are around you in every single moment. It could be something as simple as, you know what? Let's say you don't have a job and you're stressed out because you can't find a job. Well, you've got free time to meditate, or you're waiting for the bus, or you're doing this or that, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is taking so long. Well, again, like, pause and clear your mind. That's a great and healthy thing to do. It's going to improve your life all on its own, and there are many opportunities you have to do that. Now, that's just an example, but what God is trying to point out here is that if we're patient and we try to see the opportunities for happiness, or at the very least, peace of mind, in every situation that we are in, it brings us so much freedom, and it continues to open more and more and more and more doors. And we start to understand that our idea that wouldn't it be great if life just fell at our feet and everything was easy. We didn't have to work. We had all this money to spend. We had all this time. We had all this beauty, etc. When we realize that we don't even need that to be happy, we can start to have a more realistic perspective, even of those people who do have those very same things that we always wanted. What we start to understand is that those people too may also be fixated on, if only this. We may think this is a beautiful, wealthy person with lots of free time who doesn't have to work. We don't know what their perspective is. Their perspective could be like, if only I could have, like twice as much wealth like this neighbor I have. Everything is relative. So your wisdom starts to expand the more that you can realize that happiness is always accessible. Happiness and peace of mind are always accessible. That doesn't mean it's easy to access them, but they are always accessible. And when we find those doorways to happiness, and every moment, even if those moments are difficult, then that Wheel of Fortune card starts to fill up with bright and happy things, right? We spin the wheel. Maybe we don't land on $1 million, but we land on a moment in the park listening to the birds sing. That's a great, wonderful experience. I mean, it lands on, I had a nice interaction with someone at the store. That's great. If what you experienced yesterday was a horrible, experience with someone at the store, every moment offers us some possibility that we can be redeemed from our negative mindset and our negative experiences, because those two things are so closely tied together. So, Group 1, I hope that this reading was helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. All right, Group 2, you chose the Ten of Swords, and I do feel like the cards that came up on the top of each of the 3 piles were kind of very difficult experience type cards. So it makes me feel that this reading, for those who choose to watch it, it was definitely needed, because a lot of you are probably going through some really difficult experiences. But we're going to start off here just looking at the top 3 cards that come up. Okay, we have the 3 of Pentacles reversed, the 10 of Swords, and the Queen of Swords reversed. So I feel like you're probably experiencing some sort of difficulty related to work. It could be some sort of project that's not employment-based, but it's something career-related or some sort of endeavor that you're involved in that doesn't seem to be going the way that you want it to. With the Queen of Swords reversed, I feel like you could be struggling to deal with other people's attitudes. It could be that people are coming across as very bitchy, very uptight, perhaps very controlling and judgmental, and it's just getting to be too much, I think also you could be dealing with certain people who just either they're not good at their job or they don't care about their job the way that you do. And I feel like what's going on is you're stressing out because you do really care. You care about doing a good job. Maybe it's one of those situations where it's like, how in school, like sometimes the whole class ends up getting detention because of a few bad apples in the room. And it's such a bummer when you're like, I know I'm not one of the bad kids in the room. Like I was doing what I was supposed to. I was being quiet. I was doing my homework and I still got detention, And that can happen in other areas of our life as well, right? And in the workplace, if we have a boss or a manager who just takes it out on everyone, or even a coworker who's taking it out on everyone, and we're really sincerely putting forth the effort, but other people are not. So that can be really stressful, and that it seems to be the situation that God is wanting to talk about here today. So let's see what else we have. Whoops. Well, this wanted to flip around. Well, first of all, I think part of the message is if these cards will stop just falling all over. Let me see here. So part of the message is, even though it may be uncomfortable and we may feel that our emotions are not being appeased unless we say something or we speak up, like to declare our innocence or whatever, I think what God is saying is that actually the best way to get to the point where harmony is being actually achieved here, and cooperation, and people are actually getting together as a team, getting things done. The best way to get there is actually through not airing all of our negative feelings. Like we might feel sad. I mean, the Ten of Swords here, like we might feel a lot of emotional pain. And sometimes it feels like, well, if I could just speak my mind and kind of get it all out there, then I will feel better. I'll be able to let off steam. Maybe tell somebody off even. Like, well, why didn't you do what you were doing? Now we're all in trouble, you horrible person, you. And I feel like the answer here is that is the first thing that's going to get us even more stuck. It's actually not going to help our emotions. It's going to get us into sort of emotional quicksand very quickly. So I think that basically what God is saying is that sometimes we have to resist the urge to strike out at someone and put them in their place in order to make sure that everybody knows I wasn't the bad person here. I wasn't the bad person here. I just need to make sure everybody knows it's this other person that's the bad person. I'm not the loser. I'm not the one that doesn't have any skill or talent or work ethic. It was these other people over here, and I need to let you know about it. If we think about it, we've probably encountered situations where we've noticed other people doing that same thing, pointing out, doing the blame game, and it doesn't really help the situation, right? If we think about times when we've observed those sorts of behaviors, we know it doesn't help the situation. And yet there's something about our maladaptive approach to life sometimes that makes us think, yeah, but if I speak up and I point out that I was doing what I was supposed to do and these other people were the ones who were ruining it all, then it will be better for me. But it's not. It's not going to be better for you, and it's not going to be better for anyone. And it's certainly not going to be better for the team effort that needs to be made in this situation. So let's see if there's one more card. I'm just going to read it upright. I'm glad I said that because it came up reversed. And I think it came up reversed because, the Ace of Cups is about love. It's about giving people grace. And what that means, or at least my understanding of giving people grace, is being a little bit forgiving of the fact that we're all human and we're all going to fall short, and sometimes we're going to not do our job great, or we're going to lack a skill set that we need, or something along those lines. And it's just saying, like, how would you want to be treated in this situation? Even if there's a part of your heart that kind of wants to be more resentful and vindictive and do the blame game, try instead to still give that person grace. Be forgiving in your heart. Be peaceful. And when you do that, you'll start to see the whole thing improving anyway. Everyone will just start seeming to work together better. Try it. You might like it. See if it works. All right, so that was your message from God. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Welcome, Group 3. You chose the Knight of Pentacles. And I'm just going to start off with looking at the top 3 cards here to see what's going on. All right. So what does God want to talk to you about? So we have something that it's either about getting ahead with our career, our finances, or our physical health. For some of you, it could also be some sort of project that you're involved in that's going to take a substantial, long-term effort. It's not something you can get done very quickly. You can't sprint ahead with this. Let me just clarify because I want to be a little bit more specific. Okay. So basically, you're trying to improve your circumstances in life, I think, overall. You want to have a better life. You're dedicating yourself right now to improving your life. So that could mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. We're going to have different people watching this, of course. I feel like, with the Star card and the Five of Cups, you do feel optimistic, and you definitely have a very optimistic outcome in mind. Like, you can see where you want to get, and it's beautiful, it's great. Like, let's imagine you're wanting to buy a house, and you're wanting to change your living situation. You're like, wow, okay, the house that I have in mind, or the house I can envision, it's amazing. I know it's everything that I'm looking for. Or maybe you want to have a family, and you're thinking about, having this nice, wonderful family unit, being a parent, all the great fun things you're going to do with your kids. Whatever it happens to be. It could be a health goal, and you're like, wow, like I imagine, like when I get my fitness level to such and such, like, oh man, things are going to be so much better. I'm going to have less pain. I'm going to have more endurance. I can get more done. Stuff like that. So you're optimistic in a sense, and you can see a beautiful vision of what you want. But there does seem to be some sort of stuckness here, because what the Five of Cups is about is like, okay, yeah, we do have, like we can kind of see over here in the distance, this is where we want to get to. We can even see that there's basically a pathway there. Like, okay, we follow over here, we go across the bridge, we keep walking, and we're going to get to our destination, whatever that destination happens to be. But for some reason, despite the fact that you can see that there's a clear pathway to get to where you're going, and that you're probably going to get there, if you just put in the effort, which it seems like you're going to do, right? There's still a sort of disappointed feeling, or disgruntled feeling, or I would say just doubt. You're getting into doubt. And I think part of it is that you are letting yourself focus on all of the many possibilities that could go wrong, all of the many obstacles that could get in your way. Right? You're saying, well, I have this test that I have to pass, and if I don't pass that test, then that's going to make it more difficult. I know I can retake the test, and God is pointing out, yes, that's the point. Even these obstacles that you've thought about in your mind, let's say you're trying to find a job, and you're like, well, what if I go in for the job interview, and then I have to go for a second interview? Or what if I go for an interview and they don't call me back again? Well, is that going to keep you from getting a job? No. Most likely, you're going to still end up getting a job somewhere, okay? But sometimes in our head, we catastrophize the worst possible outcomes. And it can be helpful a little bit sometimes if we know what the practical obstacles might be that we have to face. So if you were a wrestler, for example, you know that you have to maintain a certain weight class. That's an obstacle. It's a known obstacle. And it's one that you can traverse, right? So I think God is just trying to point out to you guys, this is actually the least difficult pile of the group. Group 1 and Group 2 are going through a much more difficult time than what you're going through here. And that's not to discount it, but God wants to remind you that the goal that you have in mind, improving your living situation, improving your life in some way, you're going to get there, okay? You're right here. You're focusing on all of the negative possibilities, but you are going to get there. So I think basically the message is to try to keep it in perspective. Like, there's a lot of emotional energy being wasted on you imagining all of the various difficult possibilities. What if my car breaks down? What if this happens? What if that happens? Basically God is saying you got to cross that bridge when you get there. And then the primary message of the Nine of Swords as well is that so many of the, horrible calamities that we imagine in our head are not real. So why are we wasting our time? It's like when we see it's dark in our room and you see a jacket. Well, there's a jacket hanging on a hook on the wall, and you think it's a monster. But in reality, it is not a monster. It is a jacket on the wall. God is reminding you that you can just wipe the slate clean of all of these calamities that you have brewing up in your head here, like with the Seven of Cups, all these, these monsters, these potential monsters that could be coming to get you. It's like you're making things more difficult for yourself by putting yourself in this emotional funk. You're creating an emotional funk by worrying about things that are basically a jacket on the wall. And I think that most of you know that it's a jacket on the wall. It's not a monster. You know that. And you know that even if a difficult thing arises here, you can overcome it. Right? So why make it more difficult for yourself by putting yourself through this emotional mental circus? So keep things in perspective. Understand that you are going on the right path. You're going to get to where you want to get to. And whatever may arise is not nearly as bad as what you're imagining. Like, not even close. It's probably going to be, there may be a few bumps along the way, but that's all that they are. They're little bumps that you will get past. Okay? All right. So I think that that's basically all for group 3. I hope that that does help. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.